Welcome to the Extraordinary Purpose Podcast, where we explore some of the truly difficult questions and challenges that parents and their families face every day. Whether it's the sometimes painful process of parenting teens and young adults, navigating relationships with your partner and children, or you discovering your purpose in relationship with yourself, we will bring heartfelt and vulnerable conversations to the table to support and empower you. Our mission is to help you create a lifestyle full of love, passion, adventure, and influence. Here we go. Hello and welcome to the Extraordinary Purpose Podcast with Erin and Chris. How's everybody doing today? How's it going, Erin?
I'm good, honey. How are you?
I was going to do the American Idol intro, and then I kind of reined it back in at the last
I thought you were gonna make it. I thought you were gonna make a mistake and do that because he was just messing around with that. And this is American Idol.
This is the Extraordinary Purpose Podcast. Is that better?
Love it.
Anyway, thanks for being on today, everybody. It's so great to have you here. Erin, you are looking amazing per usual today. How's it going?
Oh, honey, thank you. So are you.
Thank you very much. We just got back from taking our dog Koa for a walk, so we're feeling good.
Yep, got those walks in. How many walks do we do a day? We do probably, okay, so to be really honest,
Yeah,
and not exaggerate like we love to do, probably 6 or 7 walks a day.
I think so. Like we talk
Yeah.
about getting outside all the time with our clients. And
Yep.
I think I counted once, it's like 7 or 8 times per day that we
Yeah.
take the lucky Koa outside for a walk. However, I will tell you that every time that we do it, or I do it, or you do it, usually we come back feeling quite a bit better.
Yeah, it's so good to take those breaks, and
Yeah,
we do our best to practice what we preach.
yeah,
Not every
absolutely.
day, obviously, we're human, but I'm telling you, coaching in any capacity, not just teens and young adults, but I have found coaching in general helps me so much because I start to really embody what I'm coaching on, right? And I find myself practicing new things all the time as I come up with new coaching content, and I love it. It's a great life.
The good thing about being a guide is that you're going to learn something every step of the way, every single conversation. And so, yeah, it's an amazing experience.
Yeah, I think something that set me free, when I first started this work, and, whenever you start doing any leadership role and you're putting yourself out there, you're creating videos, you're leading other people, there's always, I think almost every human being has a little bit of that imposter syndrome. Who am I to be doing this? Am I good enough? Have I come far enough? Do I know enough? And something I heard early on in my coaching career is you just have to be 10% above the next
Yeah.
person. You just have to know a little bit more than that person in order to guide them and share your life experience. And I say that because anybody else out there who's considered coaching or writing a book or using your life wisdom, knowledge, experience in some way, and you have that feeling of like, oh, I'm a fraud, or I have imposter syndrome. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to be
Mhm.
perfect. You don't have to be healed and perfect. You just have to have walked the journey a little bit further than the person that you're going to be, sharing that information with.
That's
So,
right. And speaking
yeah.
of a journey, we just got back from a journey that I think was really helpful for us because I think a couple of episodes ago, one of our topics was getting out in nature and just the power and importance of that it can play towards your health and your happiness and your relationship and towards your goals and dreams. And so Aaron and I when our children took a road trip down to North Carolina, where Aaron's sister is. And it was 3 or 4 days just outside in nature, in the sun, on the water. And it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was great. It was my daughter, I had mentioned a couple episodes ago, went on that big international Disney cruise with my sister. So she flew back with her and we went down to pick her up and stayed for the 4th of July weekend, which was amazing. And my sister recently bought a beautiful home right on Lake Norman and outside of Charlotte. So we got to see our new house and swim in our pool and go out on the lake. It was really just one of those trips that it couldn't be any better. right? Great food, great visit, like just being out in nature, like Chris said. And I think too, it was fun for Chris and I to see my sister, was in corporate for years and now she's an entrepreneur. She owns a lot of Club Pilates studios and she's become very successful. And so seeing her rise to success and kind of seeing the fruits of her labor, I think was inspiring for us as well to see how far she's come and what's possible. It's always good to put yourself around people who are a little, like we just talked about, just a little bit ahead of the game so that you can find that inspiration too. So that part of it was really fun for me. And
Yeah.
I'm so proud of my sister to see how far she's come and how hard she's worked.
Yeah, it was a fun environment to be in, which we talk a lot about putting yourself in really positive, inspiring environments because that's what helps you, in some cases, see the way forward and help you have the confidence to take some of those next steps that are not always the
Mhm.
easiest.
When Chris and I get away on whether it's a road trip or we're on a plane, just getting out of our house, right? And getting in a different environment. We talk about this a lot. We become inspired and we start talking about all the fun things we have coming up and the new projects we're working on. And so I just want to really quickly talk about something really exciting that we've been working on that we haven't really
Ooh,
shared yet. So let's pull back the curtain
a
a little
little
bit.
teaser.
A little
Yes.
teaser. So Chris and I have created a parent membership called the Empowered Parent Membership. And this was born out of talking to parents over the last several years who have expressed so often wanting coaching from us, wanting to learn from other parents, wanting tips and tricks to know how to parent better, how to find their journey, their path again. We talk a lot about this with you parents, like not just being a mom or dad, but finding your passions again. So we've talked and talked and talked over the last year or so, and we finally came up with the components to create this membership that's going to be an extremely nurturing, empowering, inspiring, motivating environment for parents to be a part of. We're still putting all the finishing touches on it. We're not quite ready to launch it yet, but we just want you guys to know it's coming. We want you to get excited. We will be creating a wait list for it soon, so stay tuned. Chris, what else do you want to say about that?
Just that it's going to be different and
Mm-hmm.
unique from everything else out there. I think Erin and I have spent enough time in these different spaces, just really observing and listening and talking to parents, like now thousands of parents that we've talked to. And so just all these different sources of information and Facebook groups that we've spent time in. And we just said, you know what? There has to be a better way. And so I think that that's the vision of this membership for parents is that it's going to be a better way, a more empowering way, a way that is about letting go in some ways and really focusing on the things that are ultimately the most important. The things that are going to make you feel good, that are going to help you become the person that you were born to be, so that you can inspire and influence all of those people around you, including your kids.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to be looking for, and the truth is the parents that, parents just like you, the parents that Chris and I attract, because we believe that we do attract the most incredible parents and kids to work with, are already parents who are slightly, focused on
Yeah.
personal development, wanting to better themselves, wanting to be a better role model for their children. And, I'll just say this last thing and then let's dive into our
Yeah,
topic
let's
today.
do
But
it.
Chris is right. A lot of these Facebook groups, there's a lot of shaming going on, a lot of I see a lot of unhealed trauma from parents, projecting it onto other parents, and it's not very supportive. It's not empowering. Not all of it's like that, but a lot of what I see in there. And so that is why we felt so compelled to create something completely different. You're going to love this, and stay tuned. We're going to be bringing you more information on that.
That's right. And that's probably, not probably, that is most definitely what led us to today's topic, which
Hmm.
is how to show up more authentically for yourself and for your kids. And in the process, learning this amazing way of helping your kids find their own way. Like,
Yeah.
really go out and figure out who they are on their own, not because of what we're telling them to do or what we want for them to do, but what they want for themselves and the difference that that can make in their life. And by the way, the difference that that can make in a parent's life as well.
Yeah, and I think I know. anybody listening to this, any parent, or even if you're the young adult, you can probably pinpoint times your parents do this. We are so well-meaning as parents. I don't think, I mean, there's not many parents out there that do this because they are malicious or they want to get back at their kids somehow. It's well-meaning. The things that we think about in our inner dialogue when we think about our kids, the things we actually say to them, like, you might say to yourself, I really wish I had done this specific thing in my life or gone about my life this way. I don't want them to make the same mistake. So I'm going to show them how to do it, or I'm going to tell them how I think it should be. I've done it to my son a lot. I've grown, I've learned, I've gotten so much better. And it's well-meaning. We think to ourselves, they have so much potential. They have to see it in themselves. I want them to believe in themselves. I'm going to make them believe in themselves, even though consciously we're not saying it like that. But those are the sort of the subconscious dialogue that's going on within us. And the truth is, we can't force our kids into motivation. We can't force them to find their passion and find their drive. We can share stories with them, and we're going to get into that here in just a few minutes. That's a beautiful way to help your kids find their own path. But what we want to do is help our kids find their intrinsic motivation. At some point, external motivation wears off, like getting the good grades or wanting to please mom or dad or wanting to impress friends even. And eventually they need to find this motivation from within. And, a couple things that can really ignite that is curiosity. Finding ways to help your kiddo become more curious about their passions, about their purpose, about their values and what interests they have in life. Autonomy, helping them get in touch with ways to forge their own path, to find their voice and project that voice. And, this is a lot of what Chris and I do in our coaching program. We always tell parents, those parents will come to us, they're not listening to me. I want them to go to school for this, or they need to figure this out, and I'm trying to help them and they won't listen. And I always say our kids don't listen to us either. It's just the way it goes. We have other mentors and coaches for our kids too. But what we do is, we help kids. We have a process that helps them tap into this curiosity, that helps them start on that journey of asking themselves those deeper questions, getting to know who they are, what they believe in, what their values are, what life's all about for them. And when they start, we love watching this in our clients, when they kind of find that thing, and it's different for every kid, and they find that thing that lights them up, and they take it and run with it, it's the most beautiful thing. And that's intrinsic motivation. It's like there's this magnet that pulls them to it. And that's where they really light up and shine.
Yeah. And remember, like, we understand where the frustrations lie because we're also parents. And so we want the absolute best for our kids. We want to fix them. We see their potential. I have two kids. Well, Erin has two kids. And every day I look at my kids and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're so talented. They have so many different skills. There's so much that they can do. But as coaches, and as we have evolved, and as we've talked to more and more parents, kids don't want to hear it from their parents. Or maybe it's not just that. Maybe they have to want it for themselves. And I think that's something that Erin and I have discovered through this process, is that for real change to happen, to take place, you have to want it for your own reasons. And the reasons that are the most important are, as Erin said, that stuff deep inside of you. And so when we talk about learning about yourself, it's like putting together a puzzle that can only be put together if you open up your mind and you get curious. And so that is the process that your child has to go through. And so as a parent, it's our responsibility not to force the pieces together the way that we want the puzzle to go together, but they have to put it together the way that they want for it to go together. And that can make that subtle shift can make all the difference in the world. And so Erin mentioned curiosity. Curiosity is the number one skill that as parents, we can help our child nurture and develop. And it's nothing about controlling and fixing. that's everything about saying, you know what? Start to ask lots of questions. What do I love? What am I good at? What do I see myself doing? What am I interested in? What are my values? And your child, once they start to think about those things and focus on those things instead of friends and family and social media, all of a sudden they're going to start to resonate with some of those things and connect with some of those things on a much deeper level. And then all of a sudden, they're not going to want to spend as much time on their phone because they're going to have things that are really meaningful to them to focus on. And that, once again, is kind of like the breakthrough that Erin and I see in the program. Once kids really start to learn about themselves, they start to become more confident to take some of those steps towards some of those things.
Hmm. Something that is beautiful, and there's nothing wrong with this, is, this is back to parents knowing more about themselves
Hmm.
and having their own journey of personal growth and being more in tune with their passions and their curiosities.
Yeah.
When you model that for your kids, they might pick up some of the same interests or passions as you, and that's perfectly fine, right? That's you just living your life. And that's another way to help them become curious. And Chris, I know we talked about maybe you sharing a little bit about, our son Ben and his interests. A lot of them came from watching you.
I didn't recognize that until a few years ago, just how some of those seeds that I helped to plant have rooted and now sprouted in all different types of really cool directions. But
Mm.
when Ben was very, very young, probably, 3, 4, 5 years old, he was always with me. And very, very young, I would get into this process with him where we would do some of these things, where we would sit down and listen to an album from start to finish. We would listen to every single song. And then afterwards, we would talk about it. We would talk about the songs. We would talk about the album. He would review the album. I would review the album. And it was always my music at first because obviously I was the adult and he was 5 years old. But as he got older, I'll never forget this day. One day, Ben walks up to me. He's probably 11 or 12 years old. He goes, Dad, I don't like your music anymore. I like my own music. And so I took him
Mm-hmm.
to the record store and he started down his own path, his own interests, his own bands, his own styles. And we still got together and reviewed his music. And I leaned into his interests, music that I had never listened to, which, by the way, I absolutely cherished and loved because he would come to life. We would go buy these albums, listen to this music, and I would just see a light like shine inside of him. And when he talked about these things, he would perk up every single time. And Ben did the same thing with movies, where we just didn't watch movies, we immersed ourselves in movies. And over the years, and Ben is now 19 years old, now all of a sudden, Ben wants to be a journalist. And he's studying journalism in college. And he's taking photography classes and doing other things kind of in the media space. And it's all because I helped him get started on this journey of curiosity, of exploring some of his interests, leaning into his interests, always going deeper. I think that's the other thing besides curiosity, Aaron, that
Hmm.
kind of comes to mind.
Yeah.
It's like not just listening or not just watching or not just doing something. It's just really embracing this idea of like going all in, really
Hmm.
going all in and immersing yourself into it. So you know for sure, is this something that you're into or do you absolutely hate it? Either way, it's great because you learn something more about yourself.
Hmm.
And
Well, yeah, and
so,
I would listen to you guys, and you would ask him, what do you like about this album?
yeah,
It wasn't just listening; it was going deeper. Asking what you like, what he liked about it, and you guys reviewing movies, and why if it was a 3 out of 10, because for Ben, it's often really
he's
hard
a
to
pretty
get
tough
even
critic.
over a 6 or a 7.
Right.
Why? Chris really helps him understand why and going deeper. And I really admire that about him as a parent, about you, Chris, because we get so busy, we get so caught up in life, things get so hectic. It's so easy to bypass all of that. And it's so important to take the time to slow down and
Yeah.
go deeper.
So what
Okay.
about River and Sky? Any examples you can think of?
Yes, for sure. So, I mean, I think an example I can think of for River where so River is, oh my goodness, he's going to be 18 in 2 days. I
Wow.
can't believe it. River, I think I've mentioned before, he's been playing basketball since he was 6 years old. And, at one time he had dreams of obviously, like a lot of young boys do when they play their sport. He wanted to go to college to play basketball. And
Hmm.
I've tried so hard to be careful, like not to push him in that direction. I wanted him to make his own choices. I think I've done a pretty good job with both of them. Skylar's only 13, but I try to be careful to find that balance between letting them find their way. And then, like we talked about earlier, Chris, nudging. Like, there's nothing wrong with nudging your kids along
Hmm.
a little bit when you see where they could shine, when you see where they have potential or they have a passion for something. My mom did that with me. Anything I came to her with and I said, I'm interested in trying this, she found a way to pay for it, to get me
Hmm.
there, to get me the equipment I might have needed.
Hmm.
And I loved that about my mom. She was open to it and she wanted me to explore the things that were interesting to me. So I think I've learned to do the same with my kids. But with River, I one thing I noticed I was doing is as he started to become like a sophomore and into a junior in high school, and I started to see that he wasn't showing enough drive and he didn't have this fire inside of him to really want this, because when you get to that age, for parents who are listening or watching,
Hmm.
it gets real when they become like sophomores and juniors. That's when the
Hmm.
talent really shines in any sport. And he wasn't keeping up as well. And I was trying so hard to just back off and tell myself, if he really wants this, he'll go for it.
Yeah.
He'll find his fire, he'll find the drive. Um, I was a model when I was a teenager. I've said that on the podcast before. And so, I had this dream, this goal, this drive to go out there and pursue a career at such a young age. And I know what it takes to go out there and do that. And so I wanted him to do that. And I didn't want him to look back with regret.
Hmm.
And I recognized at some point over this past year that it's because I had some regret about the way I
Hmm.
pursued my career. I wish I had done things a little differently. And I was projecting that onto him a little bit. And so I had to really back off. And long story short, Rivers decided to let basketball go this year as a senior. He decided that he took the sport as far as he could. It taught him so much. He's always going to be in sports. Right now, he's thinking he wants to go to college for sports management and do something within the NBA. So it's in his soul, right? It's part of him, but he just decided he'd had enough, and he was at the end of the road, end of the road with it, and that's okay. And that was really hard for me. And so, like Chris said before, we get it. We know how hard it is. We don't say any of this lightly. It's really hard to watch our kids find their own ways sometimes when we want something for them or we see that they have potential. But it's so important to step back and let them find their own journey.
I think that's the really, really tough part is like letting go a little bit. That I think what you
Hmm.
just described, and I've seen Ben and William, my kids struggle. It's like they need to struggle sometimes. They need
Yeah.
to work through adversity. They need to find their own way. Like it was probably a process that River had to go through to come to his
Hmm.
own decision. And it's an important thing for a young adult to get to a point in their life where they can start to make like really important choices about their life, about their future, about their next steps. That's a lot of when we're talking to parents, like that's a lot of what I think kids struggle with is all this indecision and overwhelm and what do I do and what do I do next? And what we're trying to help all of us understand is that that's not the parents' responsibility. It feels like it
Hmm.
is, and we want the
Yeah.
absolute best for our kids. Like, oh God, I mean, if I could only have that, I'd be a happy guy. If my kids grow up happy and successful, but that's the thing is they will. They're going to
Yeah.
be just fine. And now we're talking
Hmm.
directly to you who is listening to this. Your kids are going to be okay. No matter where they are right now, no matter where our kids are right now, they're on a journey. Now, the cool
Yeah.
thing about being a parent is that we can play that role of guide and mentor a little bit. As coaches, we obviously play that role. Some of being a guide is you got to let go of the outcome. That's something that I learned in personal development a long time ago is you let go of the outcome, right? And you just focus on what's right in front of you. you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that can be a really helpful thing, especially for parents that are feeling frustrated and angry and upset and nervous and afraid, all of these
Yeah.
different emotions.
Yeah, and it is. It definitely triggers and surfaces a lot of our own insecurities,
Yeah.
our own fears, our own regrets, the things
Yeah.
we didn't do. It brings all of that to the surface. And so don't run away from that stuff. When that we get triggered by our kids or we find ourselves parenting out of a place of fear, first of all, check in and notice that stuff and just explore it a little bit. And
Mhm.
that kind of leads us into a little bit of the second part of this topic today, which is a really beautiful way to, guide your kids sort of through authenticity is to share. When you get more clear on your adolescence or childhood or young adulthood and even your adulthood and you share some of those stories with your kids, that's a beautiful way to guide. And that's one area that I'm kind of proud to say I've been pretty good at that with my kids.
Yeah.
My mom did the same with me. She was maybe a little too open when I was too young about certain things,
Oh
but
my.
she just she shared like family secrets and stuff like
Oh,
that. The things that we kind of,
juicy.
we want to protect our kids from
Yeah.
things, but and we want to protect them from knowing the truth about things we've done or mistakes we've made or our failures or all of that. And it's so important for them to know that you're human.
Yeah. And I
And
think
so I shared a lot with both of my kids, but especially River because he's older about what I was just talking about. I said to him one day, I said, I made some mistakes early on in my career when and I probably could have been more successful in this area of my life had I done A, B, and C. And I said, and I know sometimes I project that onto you, and I'm really sorry if I do that, but it's because I love you. I have good intentions, and I'm going to get better at letting you find your own path. But I shared that whole story with him. And he listened and he was open to it as opposed to me going in his room one day and just talking at him and giving him advice and telling him what I think he should do.
Mhm.
It created this like sacred space for us to have this more heartfelt conversations. And so sharing yourself, your stories, your challenges, your dreams and goals, things that went really well for you, all your wins and successes and all your failures and challenges. Is just a much more authentic way to guide your kids and to teach them some life lessons. So when they're going through a breakup or they're having a hard time with something, or they're struggling with an addiction or whatever it
Mhm.
is, even if maybe you didn't struggle with that exact same thing, go back into your history. Look back and be really honest with yourself and find a story or two that you can take them on a drive, take them
Mhm.
out to their favorite restaurant, get outside in nature and go for a walk together and just talk with them.
I think authenticity is the path towards connection. And I think as
Mhm.
parents, when we're operating from the angle of fear and control and wanting to fix and, kind of impose our will upon our children, though that's not our desire, by the way, we understand that, but that's how it comes
Mhm.
across to a kid is
Yeah.
that, and they're going to react accordingly. And we all know what that reaction sounds like and what it looks like. Okay. And so when we talk about being authentic, the process of being open and real and honest and vulnerable with our children, it takes down this force field of perfection that we sometimes try to portray as parents, that we're perfect, that we have no history, that we've never made a mistake, that, that we got it all under control. And as Erin just described, I think a lot better than I can, that when you're authentic and you're able to create that sacred space with your kids and have that type of conversation with your kids where you're sharing these different parts of yourself that most parents don't share with their kids, their failures, their losses, their challenges, what it was like for them to be in high school or college or in their 20s, the mistakes that they made in their career, in their relationships, in their life, with their friends. You're not telling them what to do or how to do it or how to think, but you're just being real with them about your experiences. See, that's being a guide, that's being a mentor. You're not showing them the way, even, but you are
Mhm.
creating a seed or a space for them to process that information and make it their own. And
Yeah.
so that's what
And
I've done for my kids. So when I was giving that Ben example, like that was sacred space that Ben and I created when we were having those conversations and listening to that music and watching those movies. all the road trips that we took together, those were the types of conversations that we have. And Erin, I know the same was the same for your kids.
Mm-hmm. If this is new to you, I know this isn't like a brand new concept that Chris and I are coming up with here,
What?
but
I thought, hold on, I thought we were billing this as like this is the first of
we
its
were
kind.
coining all these
Wow.
terms. I know.
All right.
So if you do this, that's amazing. And I do know parents that this comes very naturally too. And if
Yeah.
you don't, and this all sounds terrifying to you, like I don't even know where to begin,
Yeah.
part of it could be because you haven't been real honest with yourself and
Hmm.
you hide out from some of the things you don't want to see about your past.
Hmm.
And that's one reason. And, there's lots of ways to work on that.
Yeah.
And the other is just because it's uncomfortable if you haven't done this and this hasn't been a part of your relationship up until now. And that's okay. We're going to give you some sort of actionable steps right now that you can take through this week and hopefully put them into practice. My challenge to you is have one of these heartfelt conversations with your kiddo this week, whether it's over the phone or in person. Create that sacred space, whether it's at home, preferably outside of the home, in the car driving, at a restaurant, quiet in a little corner somewhere, or having a coffee on a walk, something like that. Do a little journaling first if that helps. Get some
Hmm.
clarity. Think about some of the highlights and the lowest points from when you were growing up, things that you'd love for your kids to know about.
Hmm.
Um, and then have that conversation with them. Just tell them a story. It's that simple. And then let them be curious. Let them ask you questions about that. I promise you, you're going to be shocked at how curious they are and the kind of connection you're going to create between them and you. It's actually almost brings me to tears thinking about it. And then as far as what we talked about earlier, reflect before you speak this week. Really slow down and check in with yourself before you go to talk to your child about, you know, whatever it is you need to talk about, where they're going to go to college, what they're going to study, if they're getting their chores done at home, whatever, where you might talk at them and feel compelled to tell them what you think and you point them in the direction you want them to go, and stop and reflect briefly before you talk with them. Get curious about them. Ask them what they're interested in. When I first started letting River play his explicit rap music in the car because I really wanted to know what my kid was listening to, it was hard to listen to, and he was pretty careful. I'm sure he didn't play everything, but I asked him, what do you love about this? Like, what is it? Because I couldn't imagine loving that music, but I was curious. I wanted to know why my son, and he had some amazing answers as to what he got from this music, why he connected to it. So ask your kids what they're interested in and why. Let them tell you. Celebrate their uniqueness. Like, really celebrate them, remind them that they're incredible. You can say give your kid a simple compliment about something you notice about them that makes them different and special, and leave it at that. Right? Not what they should go do with it. My mom's really famous for this. Oh, well, you should go and create a career out of this just because they happen to have a little gift for something. She does that all the
She
time.
does do that all the time.
So just, let them sort of relish in a compliment, and help point out what's unique about them, and just leave it at that. um and then again, back to that sacred space, just have conversations with your kids. Get better at not diving into a conversation all the time about screen time or chores or homework or if they've got a job yet. All the things. There's a time and a place for that, and we wouldn't be parents if we didn't talk about those things. But be more intentional about having some sacred space time where you just have heartfelt conversations with your kids. I promise you, it goes such a long way. So I want you to really find some time this week, be intentional, create a space for you and your child to connect like that, and let us know how it goes. We love to hear from you.
I think the last thing that I wanted to mention, kind of like a bonus, I think, is that when us parents, we have goals and we have dreams and we have a purpose that we are sharing with our kids for ourselves,
Mm,
not for them, for us. That also creates an environment to inspire your kids, to plant that
mhm.
seed, to get them excited and to show the possibilities. I know Aaron and I were talking about our business with Aaron's son River a couple of weeks ago, and we had a really good month. And Aaron and I have been working really hard to continue to build our business and work towards our goals and our dreams. And just by sharing with him some of our wins and what we were working towards, you could just see the light bulb go off right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about a lot of this too is the curiosity part is interesting because one idea or one seed can all of a sudden lead your kid in so many different directions. And so that's why we talk about these things consistently, because when you're intentional about doing this, not just once, but consistently all the time, every day, or at least if you're having these heartfelt conversations once a week, then it starts to stack and those seeds start to take root, like we talked about earlier. And you're going to see some of that positive change. You're going to see your child start to come to life when they start to discover some of their interests and some of their passions and some of the different possibilities for their future. They're going to become more confident. All the things that we want for our kids just by us creating the space to make it all happen. Okay, everybody.
So great to be here with you again. And stay tuned for more about that parent membership. We'll have some more information for you. You guys have an amazing week, and we will see you next time.
See you next time, guys. Bye-bye.
We are so thankful for you and your beautiful family and hope you found something inside today's episode that brought you hope, inspiration, and most importantly, a path forward. If you're interested in evolving your relationship, giving your kids the most important gift of personal growth and development, or are a mom looking to reconnect with your confidence and become empowered in all areas of your life, then schedule a discovery call with us today. Our mission is to help as many families as possible find their purpose, and that starts with you. See you in the next episode, my friends.